How to subnet in binary. This video is going to be carrying on from the previous video, and we'll be looking at the math behind subnetting. So let's jump straight in. So before we can have a look at how to subnet, let's have a quick review of subnet masks. A subnet mask identifies the part of the IP address that represents the host and which part represents the network. A subnet mask can be represented in two different formats, either dotted decimal notation or CIDR notation, so a slash format. So dotted decimal, as an example, is 255.255.255.0. The CIDR format of this subnet mask would be //24. And so with a subnet mask is a group of binary ones on the left, followed up by a group of binary zeros on the right. That's different from an IP address. So with an IP address, we can have ones and zeros mixed, like this. Doesn't matter where the ones and zeros go, as long as they mix up the number in decimal. With subnet masks, it's different. With subnet masks, they follow this format where they have loads of binary ones on the left, followed by a group of consecutive binary zeros. And the reason why is because it's the binary ones in the subnet mask that identify which part of the address represents the network and which part represents the host. This is important because a computer will use this to see, oh, okay, this part represents my network, this part represents my host. So any device that lives in the same network as me, they have to have this exact same these exact same binary bits, the same as me, for them to be in the same network as me. So that's why it's very important that we understand the difference between subnet masks and IP addresses and their binary and how they're represented in binary. So subnet mask consists of 32 binary bits, which can be represented in a slash notation or dotted decimal, and they're made up of a group of consecutive ones and a group of consecutive zeros. And like I said before, it's the ones which indicate the network part of the address and the zeros which indicate the host part. Now, before we can look at subnetting, we need to understand how to go from decimal into binary and vice versa. And this is very important because we'll be doing a lot of binary to decimal conversions and vice versa when we're subnetting. So as an example, let's convert the IP address to 192.168.102 into its binary equivalent. And to convert an IP address, we have to do it 1 octet at a time. So first we convert 192, then 168, then 1, and then 2. So what we do, well, when we're converting from decimal to binary, we draw this chart. So remember, each octet is 8 bits long. 2 to the power of 8 is 128. So look, 2 to the power of 0 is 1, 2 to the power of 1 is 2, 2 to the power of 2 is 4, 2 to the power of 3 is 8, 2 to the power of 4 is 16, 2 to the power of 5 is 32, 2 to the power of 64, 2 to the power of 6 is 64, 2 to the power of 7 is 128. So there's 8 bits available to us, each bit for each octet, which means that each octet can have a value from 0 to 255. That's very, very important to understand, because whenever we work out the binary equivalent for each octet, we always draw out this this chart and we work out 1 octet at a time. So as an example, 192 in binary is 1 1 0 0 0 0 0 0. As another example, 168 binary is 128 32. So 128 plus 32 equals 160. 0 1 0 0 0. So as you can see, when we're converting from decimal to binary, we have to think about, with these numbers, how can I make this decimal number over here? So in this case, to make 192, all I had to do was add 128 to 64, which makes 192. That's why I put a 1 in 128 and a 1 in 64. Whereas 168 is different. I can use 128 to get to 168, but I can't use 64. I can use 32, which gives me 160. Now to reach 168, I have to add an 8. So I skip the 16 and I add 8. So it's basically that simple. All we do, we look at the decimal number and we think that with these numbers I have here, which numbers do I need to make that number, and which numbers I don't need. The numbers we need, we put a binary 1 in. The numbers we don't need, we put binary 0 in. Very simple. Now let's do the same thing with our subnet masks. Okay, Let's see how a subnet mask look in binary. So in this case, the class A subnet mask is 255. To make 255, 128 plus 64 is 192, plus 32 is 224, plus 16 is 240, plus 8 is 248, plus 4 is 252, plus 2 is 254, plus 1 is 255. As you can see, this in its binary equivalent will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all zeros. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, followed by 16 zeros, and this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So as you can see, the default subnet mask in binary is very important to understand, are consecutive ones followed by consecutive zeros, and the ones always on the left, zeros always on the right. We can have no interchanging of ones and zeros. And so these subnet masks, these are the default subnet masks for class A, B, and C networks. As you can see, we have more bits which represent our network with class C than we have with class A, and we have more bits representing our network with class B than we have with class C. That means that we can have more hosts, but we can have less class A networks, less class B networks than we can have class C networks. Now let's line up the IP addresses with the subnet mask. Okay, so we have this IP address in decimal. This is its binary equivalent: 11000000 dot 10101000 dot 00001010 dot 0000001. And the subnet mask in binary is 24 binary ones followed by 8 binary zeros. This is very important because when a computer looks at what a computer will do, it perform a calculation on its IP address at subnet mask. It sees that the subnet mask consists of 24 binary ones and looks at the IP address in binary as well. The computer now works out that any device in the same network as itself needs to have these binary values in their first 24 binary bits for that device to be considered in the same network as itself. So what I mean is that if you look in decimal, which is easier, in decimal terms, any device in the same network as this device over here, their IP address has to begin with 192.168.10. And that's very simple to understand. In binary, we see that we don't do it on a per octet basis. Binary, we do it on a per bit basis. So that means these 24 binary bits have to match between devices in the same network as me. So in this case, these devices have to have 11000000 dot 10101000.00001010 in the first 24 binary bits, and we can't have any difference. So as an example, if a device has got a 1 here instead of a 0, it's considered to be in a different network. Because when we compare these 24 bits with the 24 bits of another device, there's going to be at least one binary bit which is going to be different. So the most important thing to take away here is that we look at the subnet mask, we look at how many bits in binary are ones, and then those bits in binary which are ones, for another device to be considered in the same network as me, their first 24 binary bits or their binary bits which match up with my subnet mask have to match my binary bits. So it's hard to explain. So simple terms, we also subnet mask 24 bits of one. That means that their 24 bits have to match my 24 bits here for them to be considered in the same network as me. The last 8 bits can be any number. Okay, so just to repeat again, the most important thing to take away from this: when a device looks at its subnet mask, it compares the bits in the subnet mask which are ones to the same number of bits in its IP address. So in this case, it's going to compare the first 24 bits to the first 24 bits in its IP address. And because the first 24 bits in the subnet mask are ones, that means the first 24 bits in its IP address represents its network. So anybody with this order of bits as the first 24 bits. So any other device in the same network as this device itself, the first 24 bits should have this value. They should be in this order. It should be 1100.1010.1000.00001010. Any device in the same network as this device itself should have these binary bits as the first 24 bits to be in the same network as this device. And the last 8 bits, because they match up with binary zeros, they could be any value because they represent the host part. As simple as that. Now let's look at class 4 networks. And it's important to understand how class 4 networks are broken down to understand then how we can subnet these class 4 networks into smaller portions. So with class 4 networks, class A 8 bits of the network represent 8 bits of the address represent our network part, 24 bits represent our host part. So that means that the first octet represents our network, the last 3 octets are represent that particular host in that network. With class B, is the first 16 bits of the address which represent our network part, the next 16 bits represent our host part. And with the class C address, is the first 24 bits which represent our network part, and the last 8 bits which represent our host part. This is very important, because now when we subnet, we can't change. So with subnetting, we have to break down. We're doing this. Imagine this is our class 4 network. We're getting a knife and we're breaking down our class 4 network into different pieces and different portions. So we can assign this to our VLANs and to our WAN links and to anything that needs to have a subnet. Now, it's very important to understand that when we do this, when we look at our subnet masks in binary, we have to borrow bits from our subnet mask in order to create our subnets. Now we can't borrow bits from our network part. Our network part stays 8, 16 or 24 bits. That means that we're only left with the host part to borrow bits from. That means to make our subnets, we have to borrow bits from the host part. However, this is when choosing the correct class of network comes into hand. We need to make sure that we have enough subnets to provide us to give a subnet to all our VLANs and to all our WAN links. But we have to make sure that those subnets aren't too small, that those subnets are the right size, they're big enough for how many hosts we have, and they allow for growth. This is why it's very important to understand how many host bits are in our class A and B and C networks. Because we're borrowing bits from the host part, in essence, when we use a class A network, we can have more subnets than we can do with a class B network, than we can do with a class C network. So in essence, with class A, because we have more host bits to work with, it means that we have more bits to play around with when we want to subnet our network, and thus subnets can be larger, can have more hosts. Same thing with class B, but with class C we only have 8 bits to work with. So when we're looking at subnetting, we still leave the original network bits alone. So in this case, class A, then the network bits will be 255. Class B, the network bits will be 255.255. Class C, we will use the default subnet mask at 255.255.255.0. We then alter the amount of, we then borrow bits from the host part in order to create our subnets, which will then change the subnet mask. So to understand that every class A subnet, even no matter what subnet mask we use, will always begin with 255. Class B subnets will always begin with 255.255. something. Class C will always be 255.255.255. something. Very important to understand that fact. And so with subnetting, like I said before, it involves borrowing bits from the host part of the address so that we can meet our network requirements. This is why it's so important to understand our network requirements before we choose our class of mask, because once we know how big our subnets need to be and how many subnets we need, then we can choose the correct class of IP address so that we know we have enough host bits to work with to meet those requirements. That's why we have to consider the number of subnets we need and the number of hosts per subnet, because once we know how many subnets we need, then we can say, oh, okay, we need to borrow X amount of bits for our subnet, and we need X amount of bits for our host part, so we need to use a class B address because that's what meets our needs. Because we know that we can't change the network part, we can only change the host part, so we have to make sure that in the host part we have enough bits to play around with to meet our requirements. And so we start out with a class for mask based on the IP address we have. So this is how we work it out. So we all start with the class of mask. Normally we'd write the class of mask in binary. Then we have to find out how many network bits we have and how many host bits we have. And then to meet our requirements for how many subnets we need and how large subnets have to be, we have to borrow bits from the host part to meet our requirements. So the formula to find out how many subnet bits we need is 2 to the power of s, where s is the subnet bits. The formula to find out how many host bits we need is 2 to the power of h minus 2, where h is the number of host bits. Reason why we use minus 2, because 2 IP addresses in every subnet are reserved for special purposes. The first IP address is reserved for the subnet ID. The last IP address is reserved as the broadcast address. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at a few examples to understand how this works and understand the how subnetting math works. So now let's move on to our first example. In this example, we need to have 200 subnets, and our subnets are going to be 200 hosts large. So now, to find out how many subnet bits we're going to need, we need to start off with the class of mask. So we know the class of mask is going to be this. 255.255.0.0. Okay, we have 16 bits to play with. How many bits are we going to need for our subnets? How many bits are we need for our hosts? If we go back to the previous slide, we know that the formula to calculate subnets is 2 to the power of s, where s is subnet bits. We go up in powers of 2 to find out how many subnet bits we're going to need. So 2 to the power of 1 is 2. So if we had one subnet bit, we would be able to have 2 subnets. 2 to the power of 2 is 4. 2 subnet bits, we'd be able to have 4 subnets. 2 to the power of 3 is 8, 2 to the power of 4 is 16, 2 to the power of 5 is 32, 2 to the power of 6 is 64, 2 to the power of 7 is 128, 2 to the power of 8 is 254. Okay, so if we had 2 subnet bits, we'd be able to have 4 subnets, 3 subnet bits, 8 subnets, 4 subnet bits, 6 subnets, and so on. So we would need to have 8 subnet bits in order to have 254 subnets, which would allow us to create 200 subnets. If we had 7 subnet bits, we would only be able to create 128 subnets, which wouldn't meet our requirements. That means that we'd also need to have 8 host bits, because if we had 8 host bits, we could have 254 hosts per subnet. That's very, very important. Okay, very, very important. So we've got 8 subnet bits. Okay. So now let's draw out our new subnet mask in binary before we convert it into a decimal format. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dot 1. So so far we have 16 binary ones. We're going to add 4 subnet bits, 8 host bits. So because we're going to have 8 subnet bits, it means we're going to have 16 plus 8 is 24. We're going to have 24 binary ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is our subnet mask in binary. Okay, it's 24 binary ones followed by 8 binary zeros. Now we don't. Normally, what we'd have to do, we would draw out the table conversion in order to convert each decimal into each binary into its decimal equivalent. We don't have to do this because we know that each octet, so each octet's got 8 bits. It can have a range from 0 to 255. If the octet has got all binary ones, that means that octet it has a decimal equivalent of 255. So we know that our subnet mask is going to be 255.255.255.0, which is a /24. So if you count how many binary ones we have 24 binary ones. So our CIDR equivalent is /24. Our decimal equivalent is 255.255.255.0, and our CIDR equivalent, our /format equivalent, is a /24. Now, what class for network are we going to use? Well, it's going to have to be the class B network. The reason why, with class C, we have 8 bits. However, we're going to need to have 16 bits available for us to play with so that we can meet the requirements of the user. There's to have 200 subnets and 200 hosts per subnet. If we were to use a class C, we'd either have to have one subnet with 254 hosts, or we'd have to have 200 subnets with no hosts. Simple as that. We couldn't use a class A to meet the requirements of the user, so we'd have to use the class B. Now that we've calculated our subnet mask, we need to now calculate what's called our. Now we need to calculate our subnets. So we've got our subnet mask, but what are the subnets that we're going to have with a subnet mask? So what we do now is instead of trying to convert this whole mask to binary again, all we do is that we focus in on the last subnet octet. So all the subnet octet is, it's a octet with either the last octet of that has a binary, that has a decimal value of 255, or you can think of it as the last octet next to the octet which is 0, or the last octet with subnet bits in. But either way, when we're looking at the IP, the subnet mask in decimal, it's going to be the octet, the last octet with a 255, or it's going to be the octet with neither 255 or a 0, something in between. But anyway, we draw our graph over here: 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1, and then we write down this number. So in this case, 255 in binary is going to be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And what we do now is that we look at the last, on our graph, we look at the last number with a binary 1. In this case, it's going to be 1. So our increment is going to be 1. And so we look at the graph. We say, okay, so 164. Where is the last binary 1? The last binary 1 is at this position, and this correlates to 1. So our increment is going to be 1. Then now that we found an increment for our subnets, we can start writing our subnets. And the increment is going to be in the third octet, okay? Because that's the interesting, that's the subnet octet. So now that we found an increment, it's like, what do we increment? Do we increment this octet, this octet, or this octet? We increment the third octet. That's the octet that we're focusing on. Okay, that's the octet that lines up with the subnet mask. So the first subnet is 172.16.0.0.24. Second subnet 172.16.1.0/24. All we're doing for our increment is adding 1 each time to the third octet. So in this case, this is our first subnet, second subnet, third subnet. Now that we found out what our subnets are going to be, we need to find out the range of addresses in the subnets and which addresses are usable and which addresses represent our network and our broadcast. This is going to be very easy. Okay, so the subnet ID is always going to be your first IP address. In this case, it's going to be 172.16.0.0 or 172.16.1.0, so on and so forth. Now, when we want to find out the broadcast address, all we do is use the last IP address before the next subnet ID. So in this case, we know that so the way it works is that these octets can have a value from 0 to 255. Once we get to 255, the next IP address wouldn't be 256. The next IP address would be 172.16.1.0. Okay, that means, taking this into account, the IP address before this subnet ID, the last IP address before the subnet ID, is going to be 172.16.0.255. That's our broadcast address for this subnet, for the 172.16.0.24 subnet. Our first usable IP address is going to be one more than the subnet ID. In this case, 172.16.0.1, and our last usable IP address is going to be one less than the subnet broadcast address, 172.16.0.254. So as you can see, trying to work out the range of addresses and the first usable, last usable, and the broadcast address is very, very simple. Once we have found our increment, then we write down our subnets. The first usable IP address is going to be one more than the subnet ID. The last usable IP address is going to be one less than the next subnet ID. And then the range of addresses is going to be any IP address between the subnet ID and between the broadcast address. So then let's focus on the second subnet. The subnet ID is going to be 172.16.1.0. The first usable IP address will be one more than that, so 172.16.1.1. The broadcast address is going to be one IP address less than the next subnet ID, so 172.16.1.255, and the last usable IP address is going to be one less than the broadcast address, so 172.16.1.254. So as you can see, once we have calculated our subnet IDs and our increments, then it's very easy for us to then calculate the range of addresses, the first and last usable IP address and the broadcast address. And remember that when we're doing the increment, because we converted the third binary, the third octet in the subnet mask binary, that's the octet we were focusing on. That means that our increment for our subnet is going to be in the third octet. That means that we increment the third octet by 1 each time we want to find out our subnet increments. If we were focusing on the fourth octet, it means that we would increment the fourth octet, or second octet we'd increment a second octet. But because of how we subnetted, the octet with the subnet bits is the third octet, and because it's the third octet, that's the octet that we increment on our IP address by 1 in order to calculate our subnets. And let's move on to the second example. So with the second example, we have 500 subnets, 200 hosts per subnet, and the number of subnets will double. 2 network blocks to choose from, class A and class B. Okay, class B is class 16. So let's get started. Okay, so we know we need 500 subnets. Okay, how many subnet bits are we going to need in order to get 500 subnets? So 2 to the power of 1 is 2, 2 to the power of 2 is 4, 2 to the power of 3 is 8, 2 to the power of 4 is 16, 2 to the power of 5 is 32, 2 to the power of 6 is 64, 2 to the power of 7 is 128, 2 to the power of 8 is 256, 2 to the power of 9 is 512. Okay, so we're matching that 500 subnets. However, it says the number of subnets will double, so essentially they could have 1,000 subnets within the next few years. The 512 is enough. We're going to have 10 subnet bits in order to meet their requirements. We're going to need to have 8 host bits in order to meet the requirements at least. 10 subnet bits, 8 host bits, okay? That means we're going to have 18 bits to play around with in order to meet the requirements. But that means that rules out a /16, because a /16, so a class B address has 16 network bits, which means we have 16 host bits to play around with. If we were to have 10 subnet bits, we would only have 6 host bits, or if we were to have 8 host bits, we would only have 8 subnet bits. So we have to use a class A, because that's the only class for network which will support our requirements. So class A uses this default mask, and which is a /A. And we know that we're going to be adding 10 more subnet bits on, which will give us a /18. And let's convert. So we know we're going to have 18 binary ones. Let's convert this into binary, and then from binary we will convert back into decimal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Dot 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the rest will be zeros, okay? Don't really matter about that. Okay, so let's convert this each octet at a time back to its decimal equivalent. So 255.255 dot something. So to work out this, we're going to write out our chart: 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this in decimal is 192. But that's our new subnet mask, which is a /18. Now obviously this this subnet mask we're using has got a lot more host bits than just 8 host bits. It's got 14 host bits, which means we can have a lot of hosts within each subnet. So if we wanted to, we could borrow more bits from the host part in order to create more subnets. And this will allow us to have greater scalability. This is why choosing a Class A address for subnetting is normally a good idea, because we've got so many host bits to play around with, we can create so many different subnets. If you have very large networks, this makes it much easier than either Class B or Class A. It's the reason why a lot of companies choose to use a private Class A address. It gives us more to play around with. Now that we've calculated our subnet mask and our CRDR slash mask, our subnet mask in slash notation, we need to find out the increment. So if it's 0 in on this octet, okay, this is going to be we're interested in this octet because this octet is the last octet with bits that represent our subnet. So we need to find out the increment. We convert this number into its binary equivalent, and then we find the last bit that has a 1. The last bit that has a 1 is the second bit over here, which is 64. So our increment is going to be 64, and we increment in the third octet, because the octet we're focusing on in the subnet mask is the third octet, which means the octet that we're adding the increment to, so the octet we're adding the increment to, the 64 to, is going to be the third octet over here. It's very important that you understand this. So when we're finding out the increment, we need to convert the last octet, which contains the subnet bits in, to its binary equivalent, so that we can then find the increment for that octet. Very simple. So in this case, the reason why this octet is known as a subnet octet, because it's the last octet in the subnet mask, which has a binary 1 essentially. So we look at when we're focusing on the binary octet, the subnet octet, we're looking at the last octet with a binary 1, and we know it's got a binary 1 in it because it doesn't have a value of 0. Simple as that. In this case, we're now going to write out our subnets. So 10.0.0.0 is 18, the first subnet. Then 10.0.64.0 is 18. And then 10.0.128.0 is 18. And again, we're incrementing in the third octet, because that's the octet that we were focusing in on the subnet mask. That means that because we're focusing in on the third octet on the subnet mask, that's the octet that we're going to be incrementing. That's the octet we're going to be incrementing on the for our subnet IDs. Okay, I'll clear this quickly. Now that we've done that, let's calculate the address ranges. Okay, so again, the first usable IP address is going to be one more than the subnet ID, 10.0.0.0.1. The subnet mask is going to be slightly different now. There's going to be one less than the next subnet ID. So the next subnet ID is 10.0.64.0. The IP address before this is 10.0.63.255, and then the last usable IP address is one less than the broadcast address, 10.0.63.254. And then now we do the exact same thing for this one. So again, the first usable IP address, 10.0.64.0.1. Broadcast address 10.0.127.255, and last usable IP address 10.0.127.254. So as you can see, these subnets are very large, so we can have thousands of hosts within these subnets. That's why I said that if we wanted to, we could borrow some bits from the host part in order to create more subnets. Then let's move on to the last example. In this example, this is for a much smaller network. They only need 30 subnets and you need 5 hosts per subnet. So now let's work out how many subnet bits we're going to need. So 2 to the power of 2 is 2 to the power of 1 is 2, 2 to the power of 2 is 4, 2 to the power of 3 is 8, 2 to the power of 4 is 16, 2 to the power of 5 is 32. That means that we're going to have 5 host bits in order which would give us 32 subnets, which meets their requirements, leaving us with 3 bits, and then to reach 5 hosts, we need to have 3 bits. And that fits perfectly this class C address. So we can use a class C network in order to meet the requirements of these subnets. We're going to need to have 5 subnet bits and 3 host bits. Okay, so by default, we're going to be using this. The default class C address or class C subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. Okay. Now, instead of converting the whole subnet mask to decimal, we're only going to focus in on the last octet. So if I go back to the previous slide, so with this, instead of us having to focus in and convert the whole IP address to binary, we know that we're going to be using a /18. A /18 is 18 consecutive ones. And we know that with a subnet mask in its decimal format is broken up into 4 octets of 8 bits. That means that we know that the first 2 octets, since it's got 18 binary ones, the first 2 octets are going to be 16 bits, which would be 2 consecutive octets of 255. We only have to focus in on the last octet, which is going to be 2 bits, and 2 bits will be 128 plus 64 equals 192. So we know that instead of having to convert the whole subnet mask to binary, we can then focus in on the octet, which isn't 8 binary ones. And so we would do the same thing with this example. With this example, we know we're going to have 5 subnets. We know that the first 3 octets are all going to be 8 binary bits, which is very easy to convert it. We know that whenever we see 8 binary ones, it's going to be 255 in the octet. So now, all we do now is that we draw out our table, 12A, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In decimal, this is 128 by 64 is 192, plus 32 is 224, plus 16 is 240, plus 8 is 248. So our only subnet mask is going to be this. 255.255.248, which is a /29. Okay, and now we know now that our increment is going to be A. That's what the increment is going to be, and our increment is going to be in the last octet, because that is the octet in the subnet mask with the last binary one. So the last binary one in a subnet mask falls within the 4th octet. That means that we'll be incrementing the 4th octet by A in order to find out our subnet IDs. So let me remove this. So our first subnet ID is going to be 192.168.1.0/29. And the next one's going to be 192.168.1.8/29. The next one's going to be 192.168.1.16/29, and so on. Sorry, 1. Now that we found out our subnet IDs and what subnets we have, let's find out the range of addresses for each subnet. So again, the first usable IP address is going to be 1 more than the subnet ID. The last usable IP address is going to be 1 less than the next subnet ID. And the last usable IP address is going to be 1 less than the broadcast address. And the exact same thing is going to happen now for this. So 192.168.1.9, 192.168.1.7.15, and then 192.168.1.14. So as you can see, now once we've calculated our subnet mask, we've calculated our increment, and the calculated increment, we look at the octet in the binary in the subnet mask with the last binary one. We know it's got the last binary one because it won't have a value of 0. We convert that octet into binary. We find out where the last binary one falls. We then find that out as an increment, and then we then increment that in that octet on the IP address in order to find out our different subnet IDs. Once we find our subnet IDs, we can then calculate the range of addresses per subnet. And again, you can see this is very, very simple math. Once you have the method and the process and the procedure to follow, it makes it very simple. So we have reached the end of this video, and we've seen how to subnet in binary. In the next video, we'll be going in how to subnet in decimal to make the subnet process much faster than what it is now. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.